Okay, let's get started.
It's a pleasure seeing you all.
My name is Jani. I'm founder and CEO of a company called Transfluent. We are a new type of translation platform that is providing human-powered translations for different text-based assets. So we have around 50,000 translators around the world speaking more than 100 languages. And then we build integrations to various services that help you access these translators. And the latest thing that we've done is an integration to Unity. And I have Alex Sink here, our lead Unity developer, who's going to talk more about the solution we came up with.
Hi, I'm Alex Sink. I'm a game developer. I've been making games for 7, 8 years now. Been using Unity for the past 4. It's been a pleasure being part of this community, and it's a pleasure to solve such a common problem with indie games, is getting more visibility and more launch power. So we're going to start off by going over a sample project and just show taking it off the internet, installing the plugin, and the work that we did to pull the text out of our scenes and prefabs, put it in the translation database. We'll order right there, and we'll play the game with translations. Just as a quick overview.
This is a project that we use to show how easy it is to translate your game using the Transfluent plugin. First,
Oh, shit.
downloaded the project.
Is there a way to get audio? Yeah. All right.
Actually, let me have that back.
Sure. Next time it'll be a live demo. We'll get more ambitious as time goes on, I think.
Installed the plugin.
All right, cool.
This is a project that we use to show how easy it is to translate your game using the Transfluent plugin. First, we downloaded the project and installed the plugin off of the asset store.
Here we're setting up the GUI so that the user...
Then, let's set up a migration so we can get all the text out of our scenes and prefabs and put them into the translation database so that we later can get it translated. This involves, well, not very much. By default, all the text meshes and GUI texts in the scene will get put into the asset database. The only exception here is our button view class. Because we manage the text ourselves in the button view class, we want to tell the translation database explicitly which text we want to put it into the translation database, and we want to respond to it slightly differently than we would with a standard text mesh. So we're going to attach a component to all of our button views that will respond to the onLocalize event, and set up an iGame processor, which will tell the rest of the system how to ingest data from the button view. Then let's set up a UI screen where the user can select which language they're going to use to play the game in. This will show off that we can respond to events at runtime and change different language files while we're playing the game. This will use the translation utility .changeStaticLanguageConfiguration function call, and the rest of the game will simply respond to it. After you've told us what languages you're translating from and which languages you want to translate to, you can set up your own translations with your own translation strings, or you can choose to log in to our Transfluent service and order translations right in the editor. Later, you can download these translations and they'll work seamlessly.
German. Anyway, just going from point A, downloading off the internet, to the entire game, step by step. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what that looks like. Internally, we all use scriptable objects, so we provide a fast runtime, and at source time, it's mergeable. It's native to Unity, so we get all the free optimizations that they've done on their side, and use a lot of best practices related to integrating with our service. Now that you've got a taste of what is going to go into localizing your game, I want to give you a little bit of context from the business side. All right.
Right. So if you were to do an app that's only available in English, then you would be looking at the North American market, maybe Australia, maybe the UK. But most of the world would still not be able to experience the game in their native language. And if you go to countries like Japan or China, then you pretty much have no one there who understands English, so they will completely ignore your game. And if you look where the money is coming from, right now Asia Pacific is the largest market by a far margin on the mobile games. You have, if you add Western Europe, you pretty much dropping out like 70% of your potential revenue by just not localizing. So investing a little bit of money and time, doing like the most common 10 languages easily helps you double your potential revenue. And since you already built the game, it doesn't really make any sense to skip this step. This is probably the easiest like marketing optimization that you can do.
And as you all know, marketing tends to dwarf development costs. You put in all this effort to make your game great, just give it to more people, show it to more people. Different audiences respond to different games slightly differently, and you may be surprised by who likes your game. I think if you would have told me that Train Simulator would be popular 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. Anyway, localization is difficult if you do it up front. Your game might not be what you want it to. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible, even when you did this process later on. And of course, once you've done it, you're stuck in the mud, because these days, you almost never just release a game and you're done. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible to, after you've localized your game, to continue to make updates without significant drag in your development process. By and large, most core tech teams take 2 to 4 weeks to create a module of this nature, and then you have months sometimes to integrate that into your game. Using a lot of the accessibility of all of your assets in the Unity projects, we're able to scan a lot and save you a lot of time without making you understand a lot of nitpicky editor scripting. It also makes adding languages very easy, because you can order new languages in the editor. And as you iterate in your game and tweak text, it's easy to reorder text. You only pay for translations that you've changed, or for text strings that you've changed. So as you continue to reorder and update your game, you're paying very reasonable fees. So I'm just going to go over some quick samples. Just so I know my audience a little bit better, how many of you are programmers? How many of you guys are in business? Programmers? Yeah, holla. All right, cool. I'll spend time on the examples a little bit more. All right. So the most basic form of our examples are, you simply have, you want to manage the text yourself. So this is a really simple scene. All it does is change the language, and the GUI text I think that's just a GUI text and text mesh responds to the language change. And of course, we have our backwards language, which helps you find strings that you forgot to localize, like language select. Actually, I did that on purpose. But the code for that mainly deals with the switch between changing languages. Here we call translation utility.change static instance config. And we then all we do is display the standard text using GUI layout.label. We used a neat trick where we redirect some text to make that happen. And we respond to unlocalized events by changing the text mesh manually here. While we do this for you automatically for most things, If you're a programmer, sometimes you want to do things your way. And that's actually very supported, as we saw in the button view example. So we've made tools to make your life a little bit easier and automate some of these standard processes where you have your current language, your key into what you're trying to translate, like hello, and then the current key that you want to render using the GUI text or whatever, the GUI text. That'll be out later next week. That took about 30 minutes to integrate. But this is another example where we simply change languages using some of our helper utilities, which make your life a little bit easier. Here, we're using our GUI layout wrapper. Simply by adding using GUI layout equals transfluent.GUI layout, we seamlessly take your code that uses GUI layout, and any text that should be translated, we just automatically translate. Basically, we wrapped the entire Unity API, and this one line tells us that you want to have your code translated. So just a neat little trick and an excuse to use code generation. So as you can see, this GUI layout.toggle, language select, and this label options. As we cycle through these options, the word options changes in various languages, as well as this toggle, the text for toggle, I should say. So another example for especially programmers is, well, I have lots of text in my game that says, hello, Alex, how are you doing? Obviously, Alex is not part of the core string. So having formatted strings is a pretty core part of translation libraries. We provide a get formatted string function call, and that will allow you to run this through some of our iteration utilities, like the capture mode. And it won't capture, hello, Alex, how are you doing? It'll capture the text, hello, formatted text, how are you doing? And our translators will translate the appropriate phrase. So here, we're using translation utility.getFormatted, translate to language, and as you can see, as we play this scene, live demos. It's been a while since I've been on the beach, so figure might as well enjoy for a little while.
We can just move on.
Yes. So there are additional examples on the website, including further examples using GUI wrapper and some examples showing our game-specific migrations more in depth. I showed you the button view processor briefly in the tutorial. Basically, it just allows you to integrate with game objects, and that'll abstract the difference between dealing with game objects in a scene, enabled or disabled, or prefabs, and how to manage that text. Other pointers, yes. One of the consequences of making our database a scriptable object is that at source time, it's stored in YAML format. That means that I can pull my translations from the translation database, from Transfluent or wherever, and including source control, and that'll get merged as appropriate. Of course, if two people have edited the same strings, you'll merge as normal, but that's awesome. That's fine. That's normal. Then at runtime, you get all the optimizations of mono behavior, such as on some platforms you get reverse byte order and all sorts of things, so it loads as quickly as possible. And the runtime API simply provides a string dictionary that it pulls out of that. As I touched on, our iGame processor also allows you to migrate custom UI rendering text and buttons and text that you programmatically control, and you get those in your database as appropriate. In short, you put in a lot of effort to make your game great, and as many people as possible should see it. You reduce your marketing costs by putting it in front of more people, and by getting in more stores. Just as Unity is powerful because you can get on many platforms. You should also get it in as many countries as possible. It's available in the asset store for free. We also provide source code on our GitHub page that also includes tests. And the source code for the game that you briefly saw at the beginning, Strange Rocks, is available on the GitHub repo. A link to it is available on the GitHub repo, and you can see all the steps, step by step, what I did to translate the game.
Right, so the plugin itself is available for free, and as Alex said, once all the text has been captured and stored in a text file, you can take the file, you can send it to your friends or fans, have them translate that. If you don't have access, or if you want to have professionals do the work, this plugin is also connected to Transfluent's API. So you can easily send the text to be translated by us. We have skilled translators available pretty much 24/7 in all the major languages. We categorize the translators in different areas, so we have specialists in game translation. They are divided on, like, sports and whatever different areas you might need to. So we are able to provide really like the same professional quality translations that the big guys are using, like EAs and others. So you will have access to the same translation services you would get through any translation companies, but you just don't need to talk to anyone. You don't need to haggle with this. You just send it off through the API, and the magic happens. And as Alex said earlier, you can reiterate as many times as you want. Every time you make a change, send it off to us. We figure out what you changed. We return the full translation back to you. So your game will always be up to date in all these languages. This will save you a lot of time. If you've ever done a multilingual game that you try to update, it's a pain every time you do it. So if you're using this kind of solution, you'll be always live in all the languages with zero effort. And that's pretty much the presentation. And now we'd like to open up for questions. Yes?
I walked in a few minutes late, but you need to talk about it for RE and GUI. What's the integration look like? How are we using GUI?
So,
text and labels.
NGUI specifically uses an onLocalize function call, and we use an onLocalize function call as well. Our scriptable objects import and export to their CSV format. Basically, you can use our tool as is, and there's a translation helpers NGUI export all Transfluent data to NGUI, and then it'll just work as is with the standard NGUI system.
And so we put the NGUI on localize on all the label elements, and then we call that.
Oh, NGUI already, yeah, correct. You use NGUI's standard solution, and this will pull in. There's also import from NGUI. So import all the NGUI fields into the Transfluent database. Correct. And if you don't, you can put it into our scriptable objects and export to NGUI, whichever workflow works better for you. And you can order using the translation game configuration menu option. What's going on?
I saw you had an options menu to change the language. Is there a way to automate a language as a default based on each market?
In that point, I would create a script per language, make that part of my build process to on awake set language configuration to a default language. Also, you can just set in your game configuration screen the source language. Well, actually, you probably won't. No. You just want to use it in script. Set the translation utility translation dot change language configuration to your language that you're building for.
But in short, yes, there is a way to set it.
Oh, yes. How's it going, man?
Can you speak to the size of the strings? Like, for instance, German might have longer strings, more text size.
So our translators deal with a lot of games, so they're somewhat sensitive to that. Of course, sometimes there's back and forth, especially for things like humor, and of course, length of strings. While they're sensitive to that, they're not aware of all the rendering technology that you may be using. Especially NGUI has nice text wrapping options built in, so we rely on some of those solutions to solve that issue. And for the issues like humor, we have a good communication path with our translators, so they will message you pretty actively and ask questions to better understand if there's something, I use lots of local humor, and I got a few messages.
Fees? So there's two tiers of the basic service. 18 cents a word would be a professional translation, which is about the average in the industry. And then we have this pool of native-speaking students, native speakers of the target languages. That's 6 cents a word. So there's like a 3x price difference. For typical like a game user interfaces, I would use professional translation for that. Typically, you don't have that much text there. Then any kind of dialogue or any more like free-form text, the native speaking level usually is quite good for that as well. So depending on your budget, you can use the API to request for a quote, and then you know how much the total would be before you commit to it.
What about translating the descriptions of the game in the asset store for each market?
There's actually a few interesting quirks about that. You're limited by the UTF-8 size, and we have standard tools.
Yeah, we have a solution for that. So we are able to, you can upload those on our website directly, or you can email us the descriptions. And as long as you let us know that it is for, like, say, iTunes, like App Store, then we know the byte size limits, and we'll be able to squeeze. Sometimes, if you use the full text, full allocated space in English, you translate it into Russian, which may have like 3 bytes per character because of Unicode, then the text has to be compressed quite a bit. So we know how to do it, but it's not included in the plugin. It's done offline. Yes?
2 questions. One, can you detect automatically the current local of the device?
The other thing about that I've found is that I've been to other countries, and if they assume, especially on iOS, they changed it so the user specifies in their settings which language they want to see because people travel. And sometimes, especially if you're a tester as a developer, sometimes I'll tie my account to another region. And at that point, I'm pulling down those binaries, and I want to still speak English because it's hard to navigate in-game menus without some sort of context, which is also part of the reason why we provide the backwards text option, so that you can still read the text and navigate your in-game menus. It's hard to play a choose-your-own-adventure novel without some level of understanding.
I think you misunderstood. Can
Oh, sorry.
automatically get the local of current local that the user is using, or should I try to get it?
At least it's available in like iOS, so I would assume that Unity provides a way to creating that. But
You would provide it. Your specific application behavior would depend on the platform, as is with iOS and other factors, business factors sometimes.
I think it's a question and a suggestion that there's probably a standardized script that we would all use in the wait function that will give the device local language to tie it to your selection.
Sure. I'll exclude iOS from that and use the other solutions. I think actually Android switched to that as well. But other than that, I can absolutely integrate that. That's not a problem at all. And suggestions are more than welcome.
I'm just saying, show us the sample code that we should put in. You don't have to put it in.
Oh.
You could provide us the sample code that would access.
yeah,
Sure.
that's a very good idea.
Oh,
Yeah, we
well,
should definitely include that.
Okay,
Right.
cool. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's all really straightforward.
And the second question is, you have, I think that you support translating strings. Do you have support to change the layout or change the sizes? Because as he mentioned, when you change, if you go to a right to left German, then you know that this is more important and you want to make this area bigger and this one smaller. It's basically localized layout to something similar that what we have in iOS, that we can give different nibs in different languages.
That's effectively what's going on here. The resources have different language files, and for layout, both GUI layout and NGUI and UGUI have ways to wrap text and shrink the text size based on your visual layout. So your nibs would be equivalent. That's the stuff you make in Interface Builder. All right. That would be effectively what you would create in the view with NGUI and UGUI. You create customizable, slidable things there, and specify how you want wrapping and those sorts of behaviors to happen there.
We would not go ahead and automatically modify the layout though, so you're going to have to then do that part by yourself, either by providing multiple different layouts or just doing sufficient space that will accommodate the learner.
The thing that I get from your API is string. Right?
Yes.
Okay, I could go there and override and get some strings with the values that are.
Yep. You would be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can also go, by the way, so you can go back and say, go back to the, say, German translator, ask if there's a way to abbreviate this, or can we just use another phrase completely to just get the same meaning if you are not able to, squeeze the text in place. They are people, they'll work with you, and, they find a way to make it work. And they work really hard in that, too. So, yeah. So there's always a way to make things happen. And it's to be expected that there will be a few layout issues, but we'll work with you to fix those.
Speaking of that, is there a way to provide context for the streams in the tool? So like, oh, this button says play, but it means it's in this part of the game, this idea.
For a simple example like play, the translators understand that. I think we heard some interesting jokes about some translations. Our game translators understand simple phrases like that. But if you have game-specific terminology, we can work with you to build a glossary to make sure that we translate them as appropriate, because there's some borderline humor cases or branding issues where you want to keep the name consistent across locales, and we'll want to be sensitive to that.
You can obviously always supply screenshots as well, as take screenshots, send them over, and we'll share them with the translators. In some future version, we plan on making it possible to just capture screenshots of the layouts as you're sending them on. That's not included right now, but that's definitely something that we are looking into.
And especially if you guys want it, let us know. We're very open to feedback.
Okay.
You said you had genre context before in terms of game genres.
Yep.
Is gambling, card games one of those genres?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, depending, we do have a lot of different specialities, and it depends. Usually, it's like on the translator's personal interest, on what type of games they like to play and what they have played in the past, so that they know the local jargon. Like they know there's usually not the right way to translate. There's just the way that people happen to be speaking in these scenes. So it's important to use translators who are familiar with that. If you want them to, then yes. Otherwise, not. I mean, so you'd need to define that when you're asking for it, asking for the translation.
So how would I need to do the research and say, hey, these are the key phrases I want to use?
Yeah, or ask suggestions on what do you think. These are the English keywords. What do you think would be relevant to say Russian or whatever. So they work with you on that, and you can also ask that. Okay, don't do like a literal translation. Just do how would you describe this game in your language? All of that is possible. I think we are running out of time now, so maybe one more question. No? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Feel free to.